Nurture and support begins in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Nurture and Support. Tonight's episode is another Westworld episode, Season 2, Episode 7, entitled...
The string continues.
Les Écorchés, perhaps? I don't know. Sorry, I know I butchered it. I never took French. Anyway, what I really loved about...
I did take French, and it stands for the Écorchés. So...
The DVR info for this episode I really enjoyed because it was just this one little phrase, the match is lit. So, to get started, I am Mel at Karmic9 on Twitter.
Hi everybody, I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And if you can't tell already, this episode might be a little crazy because this episode was a little crazy. Yeah, so bear with us. I know it's been a while since we've been here because, of course, if you're longtime listeners of Nurture and Support, you know that Mel has consistent internet connectivity issues. And, yeah, I haven't had any internet, but it's back sort of now. So
and Kelly just has issues. And so when you combine those two, you get a long delay.
Yes.
So if any consolation, Squat Cobbler's been kind of parked for a little bit as well too, so
yeah, life's kind of gotten in the way, but we're not the only people with issues because in this episode of Westworld, Dolores, Bernard, Maeve, everybody's got a lot of issues in this episode. So do you want me to start, Kelly, or do you want to start out? Go
ahead.
Okay. So our first scene of this episode, and I'm not sure if we're going to keep with all of the cutscenes, y'all. So bear with us if we miss some, because this episode had a lot of scene changes and time frame changes and etc. So we open up with Stubbs coming up to Bernard there in the Mesa. And Stubbs comes up to Bernard and he's kind of saying, hey, Strand is up to no good. They are not here to save people. They're not looking for survivors. They have their own agenda, and Stubbs has a feeling they're going to cut out anybody who's not part of that agenda, and that would be Stubbs and Bernard. So, in the middle of this conversation, Strand walks in as they're trying to go investigate a little bit, and I don't know if you can say arrest them, but he accosts them. Ties them up.
They end up in cuffs, so yeah.
Yes, and he's going to take them for a little walk. And where do they end up? They end up talking about Teresa Cullen. Now, if you remember Miss Cullen, she's from Season 1, who was the Delos representative there. And Bernard had something to do with her disappearance in the basement of Ford's recreated childhood home. And that's where they end up because they have figured out that something shady happened to Miss Cullen. And who is down there in the basement but the lovable Miss Hale? Anyway, as they are digging around in there, they find a secret entrance to a hallway with some rooms. And I found it very odd that Strand just kicked that door in. I mean, that had to be a really flimsy door for skinny old Strand to just kick that door in. He didn't seem very powerful to me. But they end up in the hall. He kicks open a door. There are a bunch of bodies in there covered with body bags. Dun da da da. Who's inside those covers? Dead Bernards.
Paused Bernards. No, they're dead. They're ready to go Bernards. I don't know.
Well, it looked to me like most of them had damage to them.
Oh,
so
okay.
I took that to be those were ones that had failed.
Cold storage kind of deal. Okay, fair enough. It was nice to also see Ford's dog skeleton, kind of the interior workings of the dog kind of laying underneath in the little scary basement lab dealy.
Yeah, I did notice that. I liked that part.
Yep. So it doesn't take us long to get into, because it just depends how we break this down. This next scene kind of jumps pretty quick. So there's a really short portion I'll start with, and then if you want me to go on a little further, I can. But
okay. The
next official scene consists of them waterboarding Bernard, or simulating waterboarding Bernard, which I'm like, why? What point is there to do that? Can't you just kind of go diagnosis, and just kind of go to it?
Yeah, but I didn't like that because they do end up doing that anyway. So why not start there?
Yeah, it seemed unnecessary.
Unnecessarily cruel. Yes. But then again, we're talking about Hale. Hale is not my favorite person.
No, and it didn't seem necessary.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they want Ambrose's CPU. Not Ambrose's, rather.
Abernathy.
Abernathy's CPU. And that's the big thing they're kind of continuing to ping Bernard on. And that's where this scene stops. And then we jump. You want me to keep going here a little bit?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and do the next one?
Okay. So then we jump back to the Mesa, where Dolores and crew, if you recall from the last episode, they had breached the Mesa, and they're up in full force looking like trouble. And there's a response crew going down to get them, and they've got some pretty cool gear on that kind of lights up to say this is where people are at. So I'm not really sure how effective it is, but it looks amazingly cool.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because I didn't catch it the first time around what they call them. They're haptic vests. So, like your console game controllers vibrate. It's basically a game vest that reacts to the signal hosts put out within 30 feet. And I don't know. I thought that was kind of cheesy.
Yeah, and layered on top of it a light over the haptics. Yes. So that...
Yeah, it lit up. Why would it light up? It gives away their location. That was just stupid.
Yeah, I agree. So I agree it's stupid. And the only possible hint of a justification is if you and I are down there and you're in front, which you would be in front because that's how I roll, just kind of have you there. If the right side of your haptic suit lit up, I'd at least know that that's where you're going to get taken out from, and I could take appropriate action. So maybe it's feedback for other members of the party. I don't know.
Yeah, but it gives your location away.
Yeah.
So
it's like I make a noise, I light things up. Hi, here, shoot me. So
it buzzes, it vibrates, and it lights up. Your location is now broadcast. If they were dealing with aliens or predators, they would be so dead. They're lucky they're just dealing with hosts.
Yeah.
Ran over.
We're going to find out our noble adversaries.
Yes.
So the haptic boys go down. They're doing their thing. They're saying, I bet you the response team took care of this. And they eventually kind of come up to a pile of people who are not doing so well. And that is actually the response team. And they're gone. They're history. And it becomes clear that the Dolores and crew are going for the cradle.
Yes. Yep. So then they flashed real quick to Elsie and Bernard, who, remember, are still in the cradle at this point. And Elsie's getting very worried. So our next scene is in the virtual world inside Bernard's head. Remember, last episode that Bernard walked into the saloon and there was Ford, yay, playing the piano. So we pick up where that left off. They're having a nice little chat. Bernard has figured out that the control unit that he printed and took was Ford, which we all guessed. So he is getting a little upset, but Bernard is getting ready to figure out what the game is here. And Ford's kind of stepping him through it all. They walk out of the saloon and are perusing through Sweetwater. And Ford asks Bernard why he thinks that the stories of the hosts haven't really changed in 30 years. And Bernard's working through it, and he figures out that the park is just a testing chamber. And the hosts, the reason their stories haven't changed, is they're the controls in this experiment. And the variables are the guests, the humans. So the humans are coming to the park. Delos is watching them and basically recording everything that they do, creating a virtual them. So one has to wonder what sort of testing they undergo to get into the park, because that doesn't seem like that would be complete enough. But anyway, they're recording people, and that's the gig. That the key to all of that information is what they have in Abernathy's head. But the one cool thing that I thought that Ford said was that everything in the world has been copied, and that the human mind is the last analog device in a digital world. Thought that was pretty cool. Little trippy. And anyway, Bernard's getting a little angry at all of this, blaming Ford for accusing Ford of wanting to live forever, et cetera, and so forth. And Ford's like, no, I only live here. He explains to him that he can't live outside of this little virtual world, because even if they gave him a body, what happened to Delos would happen to him, as he would continue to degrade. The experiment had not been successful so far. And then he tells Bernard that he promised them, the reason he's doing all of this is that he promised them a fighting chance. So we bring up the Valley of the Beyond again, and then we cut to Elsie, who is in the cradle watching Bernard having this little mental discussion with Ford, and you hear explosions and everything, and Elsie's getting very, very fretful about what's going on, wanting Bernard to wake up so they can leave.
And then we jump to some of our favorites. We've got Ghost Nation, we've got Maeve, and so probably into the favorites, and we got the Man in Black. So we've got, it's kind of the Maeve homestead scene, where we've seen Ghost Nation and the Man in Black be menacing around there. There's kind of a confrontation between, or some dialogue going on between Maeve and the Man in Black. The Man in Black, foolishly thinks he's got the upper hand, still got things under control, until Maeve shoots him. And not only does she shoot him, but then she uses her new special Maeve powers and kind of sicks a bunch of other hosts, but some of the remaining party of the Man in Black on him as well. And the dude takes a lot of hits, a remarkably large number of hits.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder, it would seem to me that a human being couldn't take the volume of shots that the Man in Black has taken.
Yeah.
It was a lot. But so that's going on. There's still a little more confrontation. Dolores is basically getting prepared to take the Man in Black out for all the crap that he's done, till Lawrence gets the drop on Maeve. So apparently Maeve's Jedi powers were not able to flip Lawrence immediately. And Man in Black saying, shoot her, and doing all that. And Maeve just kind of starts to have a conversation with Lawrence around, so why don't you think back a little bit and what this guy has done to you and your family. And it starts to come back to Lawrence, the long history of the Man in Black. And this goes back, I don't know if it was at season 1, where he took out some of Lawrence's family, but he has not always been a good friend to Lawrence. He's never been a good friend to Lawrence. And Lawrence has been able to kind of remember a bunch of that. So he shoots him again. Another shot. Again, this guy is full of lead. And it looks like it is all going to be over, even though he showed remarkable resilience so far, and not going to happen much longer. But then all of a sudden, the SWAT team rolls in and is taking out everybody left and right. Lawrence, Maeve sees her daughter running and gets scooped up by Ghost Nation. She's tormented by that. She's trying to address that. She gets plugged. She drops. So they're cleaning house on all that. I'm not really sure of the logistics on this, how the Man in Black managed to kind of crawl away with the 47 bullets in him to a place where he doesn't get noticed, but he does. So he kind of slides out of the picture, but everybody else kind of gets mowed down. Maeve's daughter gets hauled away by Ghost Nation, and Lee continues his redemption arc that they're basically cruising over to finish Maeve off. And he's like, no, she's different. She's special. We gotta keep her. So he kind of steps in and stops them from completely taking out Maeve.
Yeah, but we can't forget that the whole reason they're there and they shot Maeve was because Lee, the little rat, called him. So,
yeah, there's that. There's that.
Yes. So, I still, I still like Lee, but I need to know what Lee's problem is. And I'm very worried about the remainder of Team Maeve, because we don't know what happened to Felix. We don't know where anybody else is. We don't know where Hector is. We don't know where anybody is. I'm worried. So, anyway, I don't know. I'll reserve judgment on Lee for a little while.
He's complicated. He has layers like an onion.
Yeah, he has a deep yellow streak.
Indeed.
And it got the better of him, and he didn't trust Maeve to handle her own crap. But yes, I have wondered how the Man in Black is going to address his wound issue, because he took more bullets than Maeve, and Maeve took at least 4 or 5, and we'll get back to her condition a little bit later in the episode. But anyway, so our next scene, we cut back to the Mesa. Hale is up there. Oops. Excuse that. Hale is up there in the room with Abernathy and Stubbs, and she's getting increasingly frustrated at the sounds of fighting and how long everything is taking. Team Dolores is slowly cleaning house throughout the Mesa, and I'll take the next scene since that one was so short too. Sure. We cut back to Bernard and Ford still walking around in the virtual world, and they're walking up to a house that looks a little familiar to us, a house up on a hill, overgrown, but it looks a little familiar. It is the house that Arnold was building for his family. He built it first in Westworld, and this is the house where Ford first created Bernard. Kind of a touching little scene where he tells Bernard he didn't want him taking his first steps out in the real world. This is where he made him, and where we tested him for many, many years. And it comes out in that conversation that the other part of the we was Dolores, because this was before Delos started mapping people's brains and making copies of everyone's memories. And so when Arnold died, the only part of Arnold that was really left were people's memories of him. And the two people that Ford had access to that knew Arnold best was Ford and Dolores. And Dolores, being a host, had more exact memories of Arnold than any human could remember all the nuances. So he left Bernard and Dolores in this house, he says, for many years, for Dolores to test fidelity with him, until eventually Bernard fooled her, is the way that Ford puts it. So I'm curious as to whether we're going to get any more explanation of that, or if they just mean he seemed just like Arnold. So I don't know what he did by fooling her. That'll be curious if we ever hear anything. But that's how all of that goes, where Bernard came from. So now we know that Ford and Dolores made Bernard from their memories of Arnold in the house that Arnold built for his family in Westworld. They continue this conversation with Ford talking to, and I wish I didn't write down all the quotes that he said. It was really a very good conversation, and I'm not going to do it justice, where he talks to Bernard about Bernard not really having what it takes to survive, and all of the things that they need to have free will, that he wanted them to have free will, and the decisions that they needed to make, and the things that they would have to do to survive. And he knows that Bernard, aka Arnold, doesn't have the will to hurt people the way that it's going to need to be done. And so Ford starts looking kind of ominous as he walks up to Bernard, and the screen kind of goes black when he says that he's going to help him. The next thing we know, the system is restarting, and the cradle is back online, and Bernard wakes up.
Then we jump back to the lab, where it's very clear that Dolores and crew are on their way. We get to see Mean Teddy in action. Rambo Teddy, just doing all the kind of mean Teddy stuff he does now under new programming. And they basically get into the room where Hale and the ridiculously sadistic doctor and other folks are at. And then Hale, who we already, if you didn't know what an insincere dirtbag she is, Dolores comes in there and she goes, "You should be super impressed. Way to go." She's like,
yeah.
It's just like, you think this is going to work? Because it's a really, really bad idea.
Yeah.
She's bluffing with them in there. And there's some conversation around the key. And Hale said, you wouldn't even really know what to do with it if you had it. So again, not, I think, a wise angle to take with Dolores at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But Dolores lets Hale know in no uncertain terms she knows exactly what to do with the key. I can kind of jump on this next little mini one too here.
Okay.
Where we got Bernard being kind of led around. So Ford said he was going to help. So he's now kind of become Bernard's Sherpa.
Yeah.
Kind of guiding him through the space from there. And it's a while through. And then so Bernard runs into Elsie. And basically Ford's in coaching mode now and kind of says, send her on her way. And so Bernard kind of comes up with a storyline to say, we can get out, you need to do this. And so Ford says, this is a buddy movie. It's you and me, Bernard. Get Elsie out of here. Bernard takes care of that. And that's the end of that scene.
Yeah, I'm a little worried for Elsie. That is the last that we see of her in this episode. So hopefully we find that good things happen because I like Elsie. So, yeah. So then we cut back to more fighting in the Mesa, and we have a really nice scene of zombie Clementine kicking ass.
Majorly.
She takes out I don't know how many guys. We also have Angela there, but she gets hit and she falls down, and zombie Clementine is still in with her raggedy hair and her raggedy dress, and she cleaning house. So I really appreciated her in this particular scene. We then cut over to Dolores and Hale again. And Dolores knows what to do with the key. They're still going back and forth with all of that. And she has I liked Dolores in this episode, even though this is one of the most sadistic Doloreses that we get. Yeah. She's angry and you can see it. And I don't blame her for being angry. They've got her dad nailed to a bed and have been torturing him. So she has a right to kind of be mad. But she gives a really nice speech to Hale, and Hale deserved it. But she explains to Hale how she does know what they've been doing. And Dolores knows what's going on. She knows what they've been doing. And she tells Hale all about it. And she's like, it's you who want to become like us. Explaining to Hale that she does know what they're doing. They've been copying people, and the key to all of that info is in her dad's head, and she wants the key out. And she tells them what she thinks about him. So Hale has mistakenly believed that they're there to get into the cradle. And while that may have something to do with while they're there, it's not what they think. She thinks they want their backups because that is their key to immortality. Without their backups, when the hosts die. They lose all their info without their backups. Dolores has a different take on that their backups are the chains they use to hold them down by basically reinstating a backup, rolling them back to a previous personality. And she basically tells her she didn't give a shit about the backups. So
yeah, I love that line. It says our backups are our chains. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So do you want to take the Angela scene, or do you want?
Yeah, I mean, so we can do this somewhat together. So we're now back to the cradle. Angela's been hit. She's got a lot of blood going on, and she kind of gets shouted down by one of the clearly the dumbest Ingalls, the dumbest member of the response team ever.
Idiot. That's what I wrote in my notes. He is an idiot.
So he goes down, and there's a little exchange between him and Angela, and he's talking. Eventually, he talks about how remarkably beautiful she is, and she certainly is. But now's not the time to try.
No. I mean, really,
time for me to get lucky.
How stupid do you have to be?
Yeah. So she kind of says, let me kind of show you what I was really made for. And he buys it. It's just like, really, dude, And I'm trying to remember here from my notes. This is actually where she does take care of business, right? And basically blows up the cradle.
Yeah, she uses him to blow up the cradle because he's got like, I don't know, a grenade pack on his belt. Yeah. And as she's, getting awfully close to him and he thinks he's getting ready to get lucky, she pulls the pin on the grenades and says, "Welcome to Westworld."
Yeah.
And then it blows up. And you're like, yes, Angela, you go, girl.
Yeah, it was. And so boom goes the cradle. Because it is. And it's just like, I cannot believe this guy was so incredibly stupid.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, so he deserved to get blown up.
I can't believe that Coughlin employed such a moron.
Yeah, I do not know how this guy made any cut on any sort of early entrance exam into the response crew.
Yeah.
So then we kind of jump back. You want to take,
sure.
You want me to kind of keep going? Okay, go ahead.
I can do the next one. Okay, right. So Abernathy, we cut back to Hale, Dolores, Abernathy, and Stubbs in that little room, and Teddy. Abernathy, okay, so I got ahead of myself. My notes aren't very complete on this chaotic episode. Dolores is getting really scary. She picks up Bonesaw, and she's about to start cutting on Hale. And I can't say that I'm really all that sad, but Hale does actually beg a little bit and shed a tear, which was very nice. The actress that plays Hale is great. I just don't like Hale's character. Hale is a bad person. I don't. Yeah. They can't redeem her. I'm sorry.
No, and Bonesaw tears are no redeeming quality.
Who's not going to cry when you have a crazy robot getting ready to cut on your face with a bone saw? I would cry too.
Yep.
So anyway, Dolores is stopped right in the nick of time as her daddy wakes up and stops her. There's a bunch of commotion going on in the background. Dolores sends Teddy to go look into it, and Teddy goes and takes on Team Coughlin. So that goes well. Teddy's pretty much Teddy's a killing machine at this point, and I don't think Teddy feels any pain anymore. I'm not sure that Teddy feels much of anything at all. I think Dolores took all of that away. So he takes on the entirety of Team Coughlin, and back in the room with Hale and Dolores, Stubbs punches somebody while Dolores is busy talking to her daddy, and he and Hale escape. Dolores does try to shoot them, but doesn't manage to actually shoot them before they make it to an elevator. And in the meantime, Teddy is victorious against Coughlin, our very nice Scottish badass. Teddy prevails in that fight, and we're a little sad.
Yeah, Teddy graphically prevails in that fight.
Yes, he went a little overboard in the beatdown, let's say. So the next part, I guess we could call it a continuation of that scene. This is where things really start to kind of go off the rails with the scene cuts, y'all. So
before we leave that, go ahead. Well, go ahead.
Okay, right. Dolores and Daddy. Yes, Dolores is still talking to Daddy, and they have a nice, very emotional scene. And then Dolores asks him if he's ready, and she fires up the Bonesaw again. And I'm just like, there were tears. It was a very tender, I love you, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, can you not sedate him? Can you not do something?
Yeah, isn't there like an iPad somewhere where you could shut some things down?
Shut him off. Can't you do something? We're going to cut his head open with him awake with a bone saw to get his control unit out. It was very disturbing.
Yeah, and yeah, so I thought this was a great scene. I thought both actors like nailed it in terms of everything you kind of saw going through the range of emotion. There's a certain contrivedness to kind of a little bit of what's going on here, but it's also pretty interesting too that it is Abernathy kind of coming back, but he knows he's not completely back and kind of knows where things need to go. Him kind of accepting that, and it's just, you can tell it's just breaking Dolores' heart, kind of how this is going, but she's still Bonesaw ready, So it's just it's a really interesting scene. But I just thought both actors just was a really good scene,
and it's a good scene to keep in mind, particularly a little bit later in the episode when she's having a conversation with someone else that we'll get to, of how upset she was at the at the treatment of her father and everything that had been done to him. And I mean, she was shedding real tears here. And it's interesting, giving something else that will happen here in a little bit.
Yeah, and this is where everything kind of falls apart in my notes, because we get lots of jumping of scenes. In my notes, what I have next is we get kind of a quick shot to see that the Mesa is under siege. There's a lot of battling and fighting going on. And while that's going on, we're seeing the response team rolling back in with Maeve. Mm-hmm. You have anything else in there outside of that?
Nope.
Okay, I believe we're at the point where we're back to the whole Mesa throwdown and Ford and Bernard. You want that one?
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So in the next scene, we have Ford and Bernard. This was a really interesting scene. I wish it's another one that I should have written a bunch of quotes down for, but things were just flying by so fast. I didn't get a lot of quotes written down. Ford is giving a nice speech about the burning of the Great Library, and you've got this epic music playing, and then you're kind of looking out of Bernard's eyes, and it would appear that Bernard is standing in the middle of the control room, or the map room, whichever you want to call it, amidst an epic fight going on. And you've got this, classical music playing, and Ford talking about the burning of the Great Library, and this huge fight that Bernard is completely untouched by, standing in the midst of. No one attacks him. He doesn't attack anybody else. It's very surreal. And, I'm still, I guess he was there. I'm having questions as to, was he really there? Because nobody attacked him. Yeah, nobody attacked him.
Really stylized scene with the music, with the kind of silhouetted fighting, and lots of things going on, and Bernard just kind of spectating in the middle of the fray.
He's just standing there listening to Ford's speech, and we're down to just a couple fighters left, and Bernard goes up to the control panel that one of Coughlin's people has been working on, trying to get the cradle back up online, but the cradle came up when Ford left in Bernard's head, the cradle, everything came back up, and so the systems were back up. And so Bernard is messing with that, and he says, if he shuts down the system, Dolores will have free reign, and she'll murder everyone. And then he smashes the panel. So he does it because this is what Ford's basically told him needs to happen. And we'll find out later. I am assuming this is taking down the entire system. There are now no controls left on any of the hosts, probably even the ones that hadn't woken up. So no one has controls now, I would imagine.
It seems like a system-wide shutdown.
They just took the whole system completely out. So, yeah, that's probably going to be fun.
Yeah, if it wasn't bad enough. Yeah, great line by Ford in this to Bernard, where it says, this is no longer my story, it's yours.
Yes.
Which is because this has always been Ford's story up until this point, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, this is also the scene where they harken back to the name of the episode when they make a comment about striking the match.
Yep.
So they're by doing this, they are striking the match that will, I guess, burn this library down. So we'll see.
So it would appear we move so we're kind of still in the fray around there, but now in the kind of intake area where Dolores and Maeve connect again, and Maeve is not in particularly good shape. And this is one of the places where I'm trying to kind of always connect Dolores, and maybe some of this is explaining what she says, but she talks about, your kin just give you enough rope to tie us down. So which does not strike me as kind of consistent with her interaction with her father just before, but
she's holding the control unit in her hands.
Yep.
So I thought about trying to see if we're talking about different timelines going on here, but no, it would seem she's holding the bloody control unit in her hands. So she just came from bone sawing her daddy's head open.
Yep. And I'm guessing her kind of anger there is obviously not directed at her kin tying her down, but more the world that's been created where they utilize people you care about to do it, and that's where her anger comes from, and so it kind of makes sense. And there's a conversation about Dolores being kind of lost in the dark.
Yeah, and the other part of that that I liked was when she says that to Maeve, because Maeve is on a gurney all shot up, bleeding to death or gasping. You know, it's hard to know whether Maeve is going to make it without help. But when Dolores throws out that line about the kin being the rope they tie you down with, Maeve being Maeve makes a crack about, yeah, is that how you justify what you've done to Teddy? Because she's looking over there at the new, possibly, who knows, improved Teddy, and is like, yeah, that ain't the guy he used to be. So Dolores did have the shame to look a little, askance at that, but yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen flickers of her wondering whether what she did was such a good idea or not. But she was gonna basically, unleash or relieve Maeve of her burden. She was ready to do that. Mm-hmm. Maeve's kind of like, I've still got a daughter, and basically Dolores says, "I'll leave you to your own path." So, but I wasn't really sure that Maeve was gonna. It would have to me been very disappointing for the Maeve arc. Mm-hmm. To have her kind of clipped by Dolores at this point. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so Dolores leaves her to her own path.
And that was a telling moment, I think, for Dolores's purpose here, because we've seen Dolores mow other hosts down, with no regard. And there have been a lot of times that I've at least had the impression from Dolores that she would stop at absolutely nothing. And she does imply that they will torture Maeve and use Maeve against her, basically all of the hosts, and but lets her make the decision to not die. Anyway, so that was a plus for Dolores. I'm proud of her for letting someone else make a decision. I'm not sure she'd let Teddy make that decision, honestly, but she's messed with Teddy's head so much. Teddy's not really awake.
Right.
Yeah. So the next scene is just Dolores and Team Dolores riding off through the wilderness, through the prairie, on their way to the valley beyond. And their very last scene, we cut back to Bernard and Ford, who are attempting to exit the mesa. They're walking through almost empty hallways with a few dead soldiers and whatnot in them, when they are accosted by a pair of soldiers. And the guy starts questioning Bernard. And Ford's in the background telling Bernard, pick up the gun. Bernard's like, no, don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. And he's talking out loud. So the soldier's like, what is wrong with you? And Bernard doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. So Ford takes over. And the next thing you get are some gunfire flashes of a very emotionless-faced Bernard mowing down soldiers with a machine gun.
Yeah, and kind of interspersed in all this is all sorts of different Bernard memories kind of showing up, and just there's like a lot of stuff going on with Bernard. But it's not exactly the last scene, because we do then kind of cut back.
Yes.
And this has been a very trippy, because if you might recall from the very beginning of this episode, there's an interrogation going on where they were saying, Bernard, you need to tell us they were doing fake waterboarding, unnecessary fake waterboarding.
Right.
And so she said, I know you can remember. So I believe kind of maybe what we got for most of this was Bernard reliving some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're back to the interrogation scene, and then what appeared to me to have been the much shorter episode, they've just done some of this stuff beforehand. He goes, Sector 16, Zone 4, which happens to apparently be the coordinates for the Valley of the Beyond, which is where everybody's heading. That's where the control unit's at.
Right. And I am guessing from all of this that Bernard has been reliving all of this in his head, and that it wasn't a story he was telling Hale, because I don't think Hale would be sitting there so calmly if she knew Ford was in Bernard's head. And then the tech doctor guy talks about Bernard's system the activity being very, very odd, and like he's trying to debug himself. And so I was at least left with the feeling that this story that we've just seen was in Bernard's head as a response to what Hale was saying, but that he did not tell Hale, and she has no idea that Ford is in Bernard's head, or they would kill him. I don't think that they would take any options of allowing Ford running loose. So,
Nope.
So that's a good thing.
I agree completely. So I believe that's the episode. Wow, a lot. It was fun. It was very interesting. A lot of action happened.
Yeah.
As we've done this season, it has been it's just worked out. The Mel's had always the hardest to pronounce episodes that have gone. But if it makes you feel any better, I'm fairly certain I get what is possibly the worst episode title next time, because I believe it's some Ghost Nation language stuff. So
I'll take French over Iroquois.
so there's that, but
or Lakota. I'm sorry, I think they're Lakota.
So looking forward to it. So this was, which one was this? 7 or 8?
This was episode 7. So next time we'll do episode 8, and we're almost through with the season, y'all. I know we're taking it a long time. But while I think Kelly has actually finished the season, I still have not, y'all, because I'm very bad at watching TV. So
how far? How do you have you?
I'm only up to episode 7, so I have to watch episode 8. Okay. So part of that is because I know as we record, if I watch it, I'm gonna have to watch it again anyway. So I'm just being efficient and just trying to watch it once. However, I catch a lot more stuff when I sit down and watch it a second time.
Yeah, there's so much going on all the time.
Yeah,
definitely.
So we'll be back next time with episode 8 of season 2.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Bye.
You can contact us on our website, nurtureandsupport.net, or email us at nurtandsupp@gmail.com. That's NURTANDSUPP@gmail.com. Or tweet us at nurtandsupp on Twitter.
Nurturing and supporting